We've got a pretty great video here to show.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
I know this place is where I am.
Check this out.
But that's not soon enough. You and I all know that that's not soon enough. We need an election now. We need a non-confidence motion now, even though the House of Commons isn't sitting. It's not in session.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
News today for those of you who would like to see an election in Canada sooner than later. So the Conservative Party of Canada has found a really clever parliamentary tool to force a non-confidence motion, even though the House of Commons isn't sitting right now. So this all happened today, and I'm going to break down exactly what that tool is because it's a little complicated, and explain how that's going to work. It's a two-step process and how it's going to unfold in the next month. Before I get into that, there is a link in the comments if you're watching this on Facebook, and a link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube. And I've written an article which outlines everything that I'm about to say to you, including links that talks about the procedures and some of the letters that I'm going to mention. If you click on that link and click subscribe, it's free. And that allows me to do several things that are super important. Number one, you may or may not see this on social media. We know that certain social media platforms will censor or downgrade certain types of information, and you're sure not going to hear about this in the mainstream media. I'm sure that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, for example, right now is not talking about this issue on their major national newscast.
The CBC has to compete with the private sector, including in hiring talent. Is that correct?
No. We don't compete with the private sector. We live in an ecosystem with the private sector. We are complementary to the private sector.
Okay, that sounds like a fancy way of saying compete. So
news loop. So in an era, in a day and age where we have Justin Trudeau's Liberal government putting in place censorship bills like C11, C18, and C63, these bills which prevent you from seeing news, if you click subscribe on the link that's in the comments there, it allows me to directly communicate with you. It's free for you, and it allows me to give you a bit more technical information so that you understand exactly what's happening in Ottawa, and you're not just hearing what certain lefties in the press gallery want you to hear. So let's get into it. So Conservatives have found a parliamentary tool to force a confidence motion in January. So a lot of political observers have been talking about the fact that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh came out about a week after the House of Commons ended its session and said, oh, well, we're going to force a confidence motion at the earliest convenience.
And instead of focusing on these issues, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are focused on themselves. They're fighting themselves instead of fighting for Canadians. And for that reason, today I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. He has to go.
He was then caught on video on the street saying, well, that might be like March or something. And the reason why he's saying this is because, well, first of all, Jagmeet Singh's pension vests at the end of February. And second of all, the Liberals, the governing party, they actually have the ability to schedule when a traditional confidence motion from the opposition parties would be held through something called supply days. It's very technical, but in that sense, it could be until March.
What do you think changed? Because you're right, he's kind of sidestepped this question of whether he would vote non-confidence, saying all options on the table but not being clear. So what do you think has changed seemingly overnight?
Yeah, clearly overnight. I think he's heard a lot from his constituents. I think he's also heard from his own caucus. I mean, there's been some mixed messages going on, so he's had members of his caucus go on the record saying they'd vote non-confidence, yet he refuses to say so when asked directly by journalists. And I think that the pressure is also building on him. Let's remember, they're not in a very strong place either politically or financially. So they didn't have a real appetite for an election right now. And I don't even know if the soonest possibility would be as soon as they resume back in the House of Commons, it might be more likely going to March or even into April where he'd actually have that motion. So he's giving himself a little bit of time and trying to build up some political capital with his constituents to say that, yeah, you know, I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to be the one that's going to fight both the Liberals and the Conservatives. But I think really it's a last-ditch effort on his part to do that, given that I think the rest of the country has already moved on to that conclusion.
But that's not soon enough. You and I all know that that's not soon enough. We need an election now. We need a non-confidence motion now, even though the House of Commons isn't sitting. It's not in session. So this is what the Conservative Party, this is what we figured out how to do. So this is a two-step process. So first of all, there has to be a committee motion which says that the committee, or that this committee finds no confidence, or that there's a, that the...
Because the proportion by which something is biological versus sociocultural varies with the sociocultural landscape. That's a complicated thing to digest, because you think of those things as fixed, but they're not. So, but what we have demonstrated quite clearly, and this is mainstream science, despite the fact that people don't like it, this test has already been done. So we developed a personality model that's pretty stable across cultures, purely derived from statistical processes, an atheoretical model if there ever was one, and quite an unattractive model because of that conceptually, but that's beside the point.
House finds no confidence in the government. Now, committee chairs, House of Commons Standing Committee chairs, have the power to convene meetings, essentially at times of their choosing. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's essentially a power that they have. Now, the Conservatives hold the chair on one particular committee, the Public Accounts Committee. Now, this, of course, if you've been listening or if you subscribe to that link that I talked about earlier, you'll hear me talk about how the government didn't even table its public accounts. It was months and months and months. One of the most overdue public accounts in Canadian history this year. So because Conservatives own the chair, or not own the chair, but hold the chair of that committee, the chair of that, the Public Accounts Committee, his name is John Williamson. He's a Conservative member of Parliament. He released a letter today saying that he was going to convene that committee on January the 7th to have the committee vote on a non-confidence motion, a very simply worded non-confidence motion. And if you want to see his letter, again, the link is in the comments or the video description. If you click subscribe, you can see all of this. You can forward it to your friends. But he said that he would convene the committee on January the 7th. So that vote would happen on January the 7th. Now, if Jagmeet Singh's NDP is really serious about calling a non-confidence motion, they'll do what? They will vote in favor of that motion. Then there's phase two. That motion would then be tabled, that it would be like a report to be tabled back in the House of Commons coming out of the committee, okay? And that would be tabled as soon as the first day of sitting at the end of January. From there, that report could essentially be, it's something called concurred into the House of Commons. It's a fancy way of saying that it would be voted on in the House of Commons by all members. So in effect, what would happen is the Public Accounts Committee could, in theory, vote a motion of non-confidence report that to the House of Commons, and then the House of Commons would vote on that motion. So it is a very clever parliamentary tool to force a non-confidence motion well before when many, left-wing observers were saying, well, it could be March or something like that. Now, we can't wait that long. All of you know that Canada can't wait that long. Many people are talking about, the Liberal Party is saying like, oh, well, Justin Trudeau should take time to think about their future. And then the Liberal Party could prorogue Parliament, suspend Parliament so that the Liberals could have a leadership race. No, we need an election now. There's too many crises facing the country. And that's why Conservatives have found this parliamentary tool to force a non-confidence motion, even though the House of Commons isn't sitting. So that is going to unfold. Again, it's a bit like the reason why I wanted to come to you live and talk to you about this is to show you that Conservatives are not just sitting back and waiting for, parliamentary pundits and reporters to say like, oh, well, this is what could happen, or wait for the Liberal Party to say when a confidence motion could happen. No, it needs to happen now. So we've been working over the Christmas holidays to find ways to force a non-confidence vote. So that will happen as soon as January the 7th. Now, this is predicated, that motion passing is predicated on a few things. First of all, the Liberals not proroguing Parliament. There have been rumors that Justin Trudeau is going to suspend Parliament because, you know, he's obviously, his finance minister said she didn't have confidence in him. There's a caucus mutiny happening. And it also is determinant on whether or not Jagmeet Singh was telling the truth. Do you remember last August, he said that he was going to rip up his supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals, and then he voted to prop the Liberals up on multiple occasions between September and December. So essentially what we're also doing here is we're calling the NDP's bluff. If Jagmeet Singh is serious about voting non-confidence in the Liberal government, he will support the motion. His members will support the motion on January the 7th in the Public Accounts Committee, and then do everything in their power to work with the other opposition parties, the Conservative Party, for example, to get that motion to vote as quickly as possible before the end of the month. So I know that this might sound a little bit technical, but again, these are the types of tools that we've been looking at as parliamentarians to get what the Canadian public wants, which is a carbon tax election, as soon as possible. So again, this is not something you're probably going to see on a mainstream newscast tonight, but it's important that you know what's happening in Parliament so that you can understand and talk to your friends and your family and get the word out. And also put pressure on NDP members of Parliament to support this procedure. So again, the link that everything that I've just referred to, the link is in the comments. If you click subscribe, you help me get around Justin Trudeau's censorship bills, these social media news bans that he's put in place with Bill C-18 and Bill C-11. And it allows me to directly communicate with you. It also allows you to directly see what I'm talking about. All the receipts are in that article as well. So you can see for yourself that what I'm talking about is true and that this is what we're doing. I actually even linked to some of the standing orders for those of you who might be interested in learning a little bit more about how Parliament works. So please share this video and help me get the word out so that people know that it's not, we're not allowing the Liberals or the NDP just to wait until March to maybe have something happen. We are forcing this government at every turn, even though the House of Commons isn't in session. And even though, you know, many of the Liberal and the NDP, you know, frankly, of course, Jagmeet Singh would love to wait till March to have this happen. We cannot allow that to happen. We're not. So working hard for you. Please share this video.
Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
I know this place is where I am.
Check this out. Where's Randy, guys? Look up. Is he up there? You up there blowing a squirrel, Randy? So, we're gonna take a stroll up. So, what do you think? Hey gang, Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Gang, Aaron right here, Canadian Looney.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this.
We've got a pretty great video here to show. Look how calm that is. So we're gonna walk out on the finger here. Hopefully it's not too slippery. But we do have some hope in this country. We've got so many great MPs from notably the Conservative Party. It is slippery. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.